serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
È bello avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buonasera.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome. The meeting of Rimini, as we all know, meeting it means encounter. This is the substance of our event tonight. It's the encounter, firstly, with the thousands of people here this evening who meet each other, taking part in conferences, in exhibitions. But it's also a meeting because we're often witnesses of something that's happened here, an event that's happened here on this stage. And this evening, this is the chance for that. It's perhaps a bit surprising, this encounter, a bit unusual, because the two stories, the two lives, the two professions are very different. The ones we're going to meet tonight and who are going to dialogue. I'll present them straight away. On my right, far right, Luciano Violante. I always say, and I repeat myself, sorry, he doesn't need to be presented because aside from the fact that his career as a protagonist in Italian public life is long and well known, but here at the meeting, he's really a companion on our journey that for many years. This friendship, this company, this support, we could never finish being sufficiently grateful to him. Thank you. So Luciano, among us is Elvira, between us, Elvira Parravicini. She too, in reality, is a very well-known face here in the meeting. She's from Brianza, really the typical one, and as often helps, she was very fortunate abroad. She made her fortune, if you like, at a very prestigious seat at Columbia University. And the question is, what do these two histories have in common? This public life a life involved in institutional politics, the magistracy, and a professor, a medical professor. This all comes up from the book that we've just read that says, I have always saved you. It's the most recent book that Luciano Violante wrote. It's an unusual book, very different from the long list of publications that he already has, that cover the various seasons of his duties, the things he's done as a magistrate, things against the mafia, public life, and as a professor of law. It's a personal book, a part of a novel, a part biographical, part essay, and a brief phrase. In the human condition of our times, we need to expel the silent protagonism of death. It would be scandalous, perhaps, to defend life. It could be ethically unacceptable to post a democracy a moral problem. So of why life must be defended. Why must it be defended? Because it's in danger. Life is a fundamental thing of existence, of the creation of the world, of knowing, of civilization, of the continuity of the species. And more beyond there, in a more incisive way, he goes on, in the public debate, we often discuss how to guarantee the right to a dignified death, but we don't ask ourselves about how to guarantee the right to a dignified life. The theme that there is between these two witnesses that is seemingly so distinct is this one, life. The theme of life. Theme of life and its boundaries, its fearful boundary, which is death. And really on this theme, this topic, what is a dignified life? And how can the life be dignified even when it seemingly doesn't have the prerequisites that we'd say it should have? There's a bit of a mystery, the shiver of the profession of Elvira. And so I'll ask you to start by asking our glorious team to send up the video, which will illustrate for us what is the work that Elvira is doing.
The Neonatal Comfort Care program started, I want to say, around 2008. I met a family, a mom. She was expecting a baby with a very severe genetic condition, a life-limiting condition. And as a neonatologist, I want to help them. But I realized that there was no possibility to help that baby get better. And she was looking for hope. And so I just followed her, making a plan with her about what was important to her. And basically, in that first experience, I learned what are the needs of these little babies.
Our job is to acknowledge and prepare postnatal interventions that provide various emotional and mental health needs presented during pregnancy and afterwards.
This is not the pregnancy most parents imagine for themselves, but I'm here to support families as they reckon with that reality and decide how to have a pregnancy, labor, and delivery that reflects their values and celebrates their new family.
One of the most important aspects of care is the bonding of mom to baby. In intensive care, that bonding is interrupted. But when you choose comfort care, we send our babies with their moms in their mother's arms to postpartum. This is something that is beautiful to behold. We help a family become a family.
Our program is based upon 4 core values. The first and foremost is the comfort of the baby.
If the baby is happy, the family is happy. So babies who are warm and held and fed if necessary, those are happy babies. And so families are comforted by that. And that's a memory that they will always have.
Then we have a continuity of care. We meet them as many times as needed during the pregnancy. We'll be at the delivery room with them. We will be in postpartum with mom and with the baby and daddy. And then we follow them along the course of the baby's life, but even beyond that.
So whether their baby lives to go home or dies in the hospital, we're with them. I think that's one of the beauties of our program, this long relationship that we have with the family.
I see my true role as a partner, advocate, and a source of trusted information.
Then we have education. Educational was fundamental. Really, the goal is our vision. We wanted the approach to be offered to any baby or any family so then they can enjoy and celebrate their life.
In addition to education and training, we also do research. We have to be able to replicate what we're doing, and research allows us to let other people know what we have found in our own experience so that they can now follow the same type of method of care.
Then we have the teamwork. In order to fulfill the needs of the baby and of the family, I need a team.
We rely very heavily on each other. Our core team is dedicated solely to this work, and so it gives us a certain ability to take time, to make time, to be with our families and support them with their babies.
Bene.
Great. We've seen this video. Elvira, can you recount a bit about how this thing was born and how this neonatal comfort care project was born? So, I'm a neonatologist. I've studied at the University of Milan. I worked a few years in the hospital in Monza, and then I found myself in New York, where I took some exams and I became an American doctor. Why am I a neonatologist? I love children. And in front of the moment of birth, when you see these little children, little babies being born, the ones with serious problems, my greatest desire is to help them to get better and have a happy life. When I went to the US, because I was working in this very big hospital, I realized that there was a number of pathologies that we couldn't cure. But I had that desire to save the life of all of the babies. I needed to resolve this. So I stayed with them. I remained with these families, with these children, seeking with my experience to do whatever I could. And in brackets, I'd say I've never been a big fan of palliative care because my mission was to save babies. But as a neonatologist, I knew how to make a baby stay well, even if it would live for a short time. So, keeping this desire alive, working with these families, I realized at a certain point that saving the life of these babies meant respecting their life. And I have in mind a case that happened to me. I was looking after a very premature baby, 26 weeks, in my intensive care unit. And the mother came later on, and she was expecting a baby that had no kidneys. This was incurable. She put herself in my hands and said, "You saved my first baby, maybe you can save me this one." And so the relationship with her, with this family, together, we understood that to save this baby was in respecting his life for what it would be. So to come back to the story of this program that I'd like to say that the beginnings, I was a bit alone in the sense that I met these mothers, and then if it wasn't my turn, even then I went to, when they were being born, I went into the hospital, and I felt that I could look after them well, and so I put myself out there, I helped them. And then other people observed me, other medics observed me. We saw some other faces, some other ladies who worked with me. The lady with long red hair, Fran, she's a nurse who works in intensive care. And we dreamed together the one day, main day we could work together. And then at one point, with the help of donors and foundations, I was able to give some jobs, to create some jobs, and that I offered to Fran. I said to her, "Look, it's 30 years that you worked in ICU. I can pay you for 3 years. Will you come with me?" And she said, "Yes, of course." And we started. And so it went well because, fortunately, she's still been working with me for 15 years. So we started working with gynecologist colleagues, which for them was a big novelty. But they'd seen how these families felt themselves supported Because when there's somebody who lives the pregnancy with you and is ready at the birth to welcome this baby, then they're helped in a way that this thing that seemed impossible can become possible. And so we started this work with them. I started in 2008. We had 13 cases. And then we've now seen hundreds of cases, so many, many families. What we offer simply to this baby is what we offer to other babies. We give them baths, give them food, and which is most important, because in many hospitals, I think even in Europe, in Italy as well, these babies they don't give them food because they live so short a life. We respect their natural life. And so we feed them, obviously. Well, I recall the case of one little girl with a very grave genetic illness who lived only 48 hours, and her mum came to thank me because she said, okay, thank you, because at least she went to heaven with a full tummy. Because eating for a baby is one of their pleasures. So in this program, there's a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, drama, but there's also irony and smiles, I'd say. And maybe I'll stop here. Thank you. Luciano, we've heard this account about the protection of life, even if it just goes on for a few hours, this absolute value of life. You've decided to concentrate all the attention in this book on this theme. Why? Why this theme? Why now? How come you decided to choose this topic?
Eccolo.
Dovrebbe esserci un quadro, è arrivato, ecco.
Here we go. So this painting we have here, and it was made in the second half of the 1500s, when there was a great richness and the world was a more confusing place. And everyone gave what they could and tried to earn what they could. So this ascent to Calvary was painted by Brugelli il Vecchio, and it's hard to distinguish Jesus among the crowd, because there's a row of knights on the left who are hunting. There are people who are chatting among themselves. There's the Virgin Mary in the bottom right, separated from the rest, but there's a huge mass of people. Some people are already on top and are waiting. You can even you can look at it there. It's an ordinary scene. It's an extraordinary scene. One of the most important things in the history of humanity is happening. A 30-year-old man is about to be brought to the scaffold, and it will change the history of humanity. But no one's aware that that's about to happen. And if you look, you can see that Jesus is on foot and the others are around him. Then maybe if you look at it a bit more closely, it's a bit easier to see. But what did the artist want to say? He wanted to say that sometimes fundamental, incredible things happen to us, but that we aren't aware that they're happening in that moment. None of those people there are aware of what's going on, but if we look, this scene of the ascent to a Calvary, it's usually painted with Jesus in a place of key where you can see him, whereas here you can't really tell what's happening. Until about a month ago, I didn't know what you did for work. We've only just learnt that now. So with this painting that I always like to show at the beginning of my lessons, to show the kids, let's look around the room, let's try and understand what's going on in the world around us. The second link is this. So what's happening? It's exactly like Andrea said, that we're surrounded right now by death. death in Gaza and Israel, death in Russia and Ukraine. There's 56 wars being waged right now, with roughly a billion people between deaths and injuries. That speaks to me. Are we getting just more used to this idea of death? You know, we see online there's 40 deaths by Hamas militants, 20 among the IDF, and we read this easily. This strikes me because we're moved for young Ukrainians who are killed, but the young Russians sent to Putin without any training to be killed, shouldn't they move us too? Shouldn't their death move us? Or just by the fact we're on the side of the Ukrainians mean we shouldn't mourn the dead Russians? So, you know, there are some strange things that happen. I mean, to think about death, because, you know, it's obvious, we all die. There are people who die in the Mediterranean who drown. There are people who die in prisons, people who kill themselves and are killed by gangs. So what about it? Because we need to reclaim the value of life. Look, I'm a believer, but like I said, I'm not I don't have any religion until now. Then maybe I'll find one later, but, you know, let's not limit what might happen in future. But what's the point? So is that the covenant that Scripture talks about, what is it? It's like Luke's Gospel says at the Last Supper. Jesus says, you know, I'm going, but this is between you. So that the sense of life, the meaning of life, is a war between good and evil that's not finished yet, and we don't know when it will finish. And that there's still something we have to keep building. We have to keep building an alliance against evil. So I'm sorry if I put it like this. We need to help the Lord. We need to give him a hand in his fight against evil. Because that fight, I'll underline again, is not over. So if we get a new value of life, sense of that value, we see it, we take a new outlook on death. For example, if we think about death, with death and peace we see as just, and we look to our leaders for it, and people like us have an interest in life. But we need to campaign for life, that we need to, as much as we campaign for peace, because peace doesn't mean that we stop killing each other. It means, as you said, Andrea, let's put the value of life first. If life is this relationship that we need to build against evil, you know, in building this alliance, I sent my son on to die on the cross for the sake of this covenant, this alliance against evil. And I've left you some things to do, things to build. And that's exactly what we need to do. That's our role here on earth. So with we can have a death with dignity, but we need to concentrate on living with dignity, and this is where our leaders have a role, and it's a profound one. And I just wanted to add something, that those who govern, it's their job to rouse confidence and govern people's hopes, because if you don't have any hope, you don't look to the future, you don't have children, you don't think about what comes next. And politics should organize the hope of its citizens, give them the possibility to undertake what they want, their dreams, their hopes, their aspirations. And I think this removes the tragic sense of death. Obviously, life and death are irrepeatable as far as human beings are concerned. And as such, that there's something sacred to them. Because I'd like to draw your attention to one thing. Being human, from 5,000 BC, we've seen that human beings bury each other, and we can see that human beings have buried each other for 5,000 years. That we can see a certain relationship between the people who are there in the past, who are here now, and who will be here in future. But as opposed to all other different beings, then other people draw parallels with other animals and other such creatures. But we've invented something that no one else has. We've guarded and looked after the bodies of the dead, thinking as if there was a value in it that needs to be respected, that the life lived by those people needs to be respected. Respected not, by throwing them into the jungle or whatever and abandoning the corpses like animals, but by looking after them. So if we place this value in life, this men and women, as opposed to all other living creatures, you have to, in a certain way,
to
heal this relationship between death and life. And this is my opinion, that we need to keep working on this.
Grazie.
Thank you. So we're engaged in this battle, we could say, in this alliance, like you said, Luciano. So we need to help our Lord in this, as you said, in this defense of life against this death, this obsession with death. But many times, to defend life, to accept it, to accept the responsibility that it places, seems at too heavy a weight in front of a life that's disabled, that's sick, it doesn't have a future. Do you find yourself in your profession many times so close to this difficulty of defending life? Could you recount something about this? Sure. I'd say that the first thing, you used the word wound rightly. I think the first thing is to allow yourself be wounded. When I open the door when I go into a consulting room, a prenatal meeting, then even after 15 years, I don't want to open that door, because I know that for the parents, it's an infinite pain, but also for me, it's difficult, because I would like to say, I'll save your baby, we'll do this. That in my task as a medic, I'd like to make things end well. And so instead, letting yourself be wounded means staying there with them, being in front of this mystery that we don't know the meaning of, in the sense that it's too big for us. So from the scientific point of view, you could say, okay, yeah, so this baby has got the wrong number of chromosomes, this baby has had an infection, whatever. There's a biological explanation, but there's not an explanation of why, of the deep reason behind. And so what I've learnt from these families is staying there with them with my heart open. As Luciano defines the heart, I learnt this from him, that it's that thing we have within us, inside all of us, that makes us desire to love, even in front of death, to desire to be happy, desire to live forever. So that this baby, that me as a medic, but also as a parent, would like this baby to live forever. So in those situations, how does your heart go into play? I remember meeting these parents that many times the heart is a bit hidden. And I understand it very well, because the pain for a diagnosis like this is so strong that a parent almost wants to not meet their own child there. It's too much for them. And so I understand that our task as doctors, as nurses, as people who are there in contact with them, it should be that to sustain their heart. So when we start having our consultations, I always start off saying, but it's a boy, it's a girl, what's it called? So I seek to make the parents feel how much I care about that baby, because it's true, I really do care about them. It's not a formality. And I noted that these parents follow me, they come along with me. It's something that I've learnt, is that a parent can't bring it, can't deal with it if they realize that there's somebody who loves their baby more than them. So they catch up. And so I realized that loving isn't an option. It's not a neutral choice. We love our children, and for this, what I try to do is to sustain this love. And so the first thing then is this, and a brief example. I met a family, they were expecting twins, a normal twin girl and a boy who was lacking a brain. This was anencephaly, had no brain. And when I met with them, they were speaking always of the baby, of the girl, and what she was called, and about the boy. They didn't dare speak about him. And one day, I provoked them a bit. I said, "But let's find a name for the boy as well, because his time will be short." So I tried to support them a bit. When these little twins were born, the girl, they caressed the girl, etc., and popped her in the crib. All the time after the birth, they were there with the boy, the baby boy. So I went to say hi to them and look at check over the babies, and they said, yes, doctor, because the time is so short, we want that this little boy be held in our arms all the time. So they've done this step forward. So I think how, as a medic, this was a victory. Yep. And then the second thing is looking at reality, following reality. In these situations, these are unimaginable dramas, but if we look at reality, we find a way out, if I can say it. And this is another example that marked me a lot. There was a baby due to be born who had a very grave genetic one, and also heart trouble, so we expected this baby would live for maybe a couple of days, and that would be it. Baby's born, and it seems that he can breathe, he can cry. So we say, let's try and give him some food. So as soon as we put a couple of drops, the baby goes blue and doesn't breathe. So as a medic, I thought maybe is there somebody in the room who can help me? So we check if there's something wrong with the esophagus, and there we realize either we'll let it die of hunger, or we'll have to go into intensive care and put in a tube. And so for the parents, those two things didn't go well, because in the first case, letting a baby die of hunger, no. In the second case, the parents said to me, no, this baby, we want him in our arms all the time, for all his life. So I asked the surgeon, say, can we manage to put in a gastric tube or something? But he said, with this thing, the baby's going to die under the knife. And so we medics said, we had this dilemma without a way out. But in the same time, my nurse said, let the doctors talk among themselves. And she said, Mum, why don't we give the baby a little bath? And then we'll dress him, we'll hold him, and we'll look after him. So they focused on comforting the baby. And after a bit, I go back in to see what's happening, and I see that this baby is breathing getting blue, is breathing ever more and more slowly. And so after a couple of minutes, I listened to the heart, and he was gone. And I understood that this baby he'd decided for himself. He resolved, we could say, that dramatic dilemma of the parents and of the doctor. The destiny took him clarifying what should have had to happen. And so even there, into great humility, because destiny makes itself present and makes it understood. Last example, this story, a bit the opposite, of a baby who was born with only half a heart. And her parents didn't want to do the 3 surgical operations, open heart surgery, that that perhaps we could have done, then maybe get to a transplant, etc. Because we don't want this baby to suffer in hospital for her life. We want to hold her. And so when the baby was born, she seemed well. She ate. She seemed a normal baby. So I said, okay, let's see. With the nurses and the palliative doctors, we follow the case. We let them go home. We think maybe she'll have to live for a few months because there's some shunts inside the heart. And the baby grew. And we get to 2 months old, 3 months, and she keeps growing, eating and sleeping, grows. We get to 6 months. She comes for a checkup. She's well. Some problems, but still she's well. And so, to keep it short, she lived for 7 years. Practically, she developed some collaterals which let her have the right amount of blood flow to her lungs. And she lived 7 marvelous years with her family. She went to school, played with her brothers, and then when she was 7, bit by bit, she went off. So palliative medicine isn't for babies who are born and die like this. We need to follow the reality. The destiny is what decides. And here I'll stop again. Thank you. Thank you. These things that we hear, one wouldn't think of them. They were possible if we didn't hear them, that they could have happened. We couldn't have imagined them. So I wanted to turn to a word which you used before, which I think is very linked to this thing. Before you talked about hope. In the book, there's a phrase where you say, the primacy of life is strictly linked to the principle of hope, which animates the trust in the improving in the future, in a better future. So the impression I have today is that there's a lot of fear. There's too much fear to have children. Italian is the lowest level of birth rate in Europe, and we think to unload these things on external factors, maybe the lack of work, lack of the right infrastructure, but deep down there's a sensation that it's a problem of hope. That we don't want to give life because we're scared about the future. We fear not being able to manage, not being able to sustain them. There's a fear of having to become dependent on these children because little children are very very needy and so on. So you speak of hope.
So I just want to say something. I'll talk in the first part now about questions of life and death, but in the second part, there's written that when my wife was dying, that I still had some sort of hope. Well, what does that mean then? They said my hope was baseless, so I looked back on this hope and this trust that I had on what I was being told. And my wife didn't make it in the end, but some week later, that was in December. And so I was faced with another death, which was that of my mother. It was a long story. I won't tell you the whole thing, 'cause it'd be quite long, but in the last few days in which she was ill, she'd been to a concentration camp in Ethiopia, and she'd ended up in Naples. She was from Naples. She couldn't go to her people and her family in Milan because there was the front line, and so she went to her husband's village, who was in Puglia. And so, when faced with this, I was found with the story of my mother, and I found that this was an interesting journey. I was faced by this, and I had to be there. I had to face up to it. And she looked at me and she said, I've always saved you, which is the title of the book. She'd given herself up to sacrifice to save me. And even then, there was hope from my mother, and the trust that she'd be able to save her son, because in concentration camps, life wasn't. You know what concentration camps are, even if you've never been. You know what happens in concentration camps. My father was a communist journalist, and so it was a complicated situation to be in during the war. So I thought about this trust, this hope. I thought about them not as two elements that are only personal, that are unique to me, but as general elements, like you mentioned. So I think the role of politics is to inspire hope and inspire trust and help organize people's hope. I think that now people have fewer children, perhaps not because, as we say, because women work, so we don't have enough nurseries, but if people had hope for the future, people would be more willing to have children. So we need to have a new policy that organizes hope and that brings together all these policies about life, because politics surrounding children is one thing, the politics surrounding education is another, that about families is a third thing, and politics about health is something else. So all these policies, with work is something else, but all these different levels of policy have to do with life, and they are connected between them. So the job of politicians, of our leaders, should be to make a big biopolitical department under which all the policies of life are managed, to give dignity to life, because before I was interested about life, we need to be interested about dignity of life, because we need to help people find hope, and we need politicians who can organize people's hope and incite them to bring it to the fore, because this is what otherwise what makes sense otherwise, because we need to give them the tools to do this. This is what politics is for, redistribution and everything. But so in this sense, I had the idea of not only thinking of myself in a particular way, but even in difficult times, and I'd feel this conflict between my hope and those who told me that my hope was baseless, and a more general conversation, a policy and a politics that's organic, that's about hope. And so I ask, we have a clear view in the political debate that there is in the US. On the one side, there's hope. On the other, there's how we can say the indications of the evils of the country, which is fine. You can make your own choices, but that's the discussion which, based on what I heard yesterday, it aims towards this, to the future. And I think those who are politicians should always try and give hope for the future, on how they should think about how to move on, how to keep going, how to build hope, how to build the future. Because we'd do so much better if there was an aim to reach for, if there was something over the horizon. There's been coups, there's heads of state kidnapped and killed, a whole ruling class eliminated, journalists killed by the mafia and by terrorists. How many other countries would have resisted, like Italy's resisted to this political terror in the past? We pulled ourselves together. We have the strength inside us, certainly, which is embedded in our culture and our history. And so I think it's necessary that those who govern should think about this, should think about how to bring together all these policies that can give hope. Because if I have hope, I give more effort. I always keep going, and I work harder because I know there's an aim, there's something we can reach. If I didn't have any hope, I wouldn't get up in the morning. And it's profoundly different how you live when you have hope. And that's what I think is the main task that politics needs to rise up to. Because there's something that worries me, a fact. Is that Canada's one of the countries which is most advanced, let's say, when it comes to euthanasia. Roughly 35% of Canadians think that poverty should be a sufficient category to ask for euthanasia. That not having a home should be a sufficient reason to ask for euthanasia. And you can do it in the sense of people with mental health conditions, so that people can. And the Canadian Ministry of Finance has said that if they pass a certain law that extends euthanasia, they'd be able to save $180 billion a year in pensions if they allowed old people to have euthanasia. And what a thought that is. The death is put on is handed over to the state, and because there's no effort to aim for life, there's no hope for life. I think it's so important that on this question, sorry, I hope I don't offend anyone here. To go and criminalize women who are choosing what to do. About the fetus, depending on the stage of development. I don't want to offend anyone. What we need to do is help. Obviously you help the women. You stay close to them. You look after the child. You're with the mother, because all of us, we need someone who's close to us, who helps us, even in the most difficult moments, most terrible moments. We need someone to be with us, to be by our side, and this is the capacity we need to work towards. And I think if the average citizen knows that there's a government that's close to them, because we are one with politics that works towards hope, and this is when we're strongest. And this is what I wanted to say.
Il meeting è anche una.
The meeting is also a great crowd from which ideas come out. So this, indeed, in fact, this proposal for a Department of Biopolitics, which pulls together all of the different functions and the different which govern together all these things. The idea of life as a togetherness of all the factors that sustain it. So let's see what happens with this proposal that's come out of the meeting. So we are at the last round of our meeting, and our title, there's for life, a responsibility of each one of us and a task for all. So I'd like to ask Elvira, from your experience, from your point of view, what is the responsibility that we have? So you do something particular, something unusual in a very special place in life. And what do you see from there that can be of help to everybody? So, because we were talking about hope before, I'd say that the responsibility and the task that we have is to keep hope open. And I say at the personal level, that is in my relationship with these parents, I say it with my colleagues, but I also say it at the level of creating structures where hope can be sustained, supported. So I want to quote a little phrase from Don Giussani, who says, I want to quote a human case where you see that clearly how hope is a human word. And it's there where a desire is, that you hope to satisfy it. And then he, in the book, talks about Leopardi and goes on about this. And I think for my families and my babies, and Giussani says, that which is born through contradiction, through the no. In front of the contradiction, there's a no. Is the response of your head, but the heart is a yearning. It's not a no. So I'd say that the responsibility in seeing these families is that I realize that this hope that we have inside us, it's impossible to beat it down, to kill it, because, as you said before, it's the motor, it's the moving force that we have within us. And I see it, for example, I could let you show some photos that we do at the birth of some of these families. They're all smiling. They're having a party because in that moment, hope can be because life is full of many nows. In that moment of the birth is a moment of glory because there, hope finds the object of its desire. Right? It might be 5 minutes, it might be 3 hours, but it's all there. And the first thing. And the second thing, gratitude is born. Because I learn it really from the parents whose child is about to die. 1 minute more, 2 minutes more, an hour more is given to them as a gift. And so in immense gratitude they have. And then at the level a bit more structural, I found myself building up this program, pushed by reality, if you like, as I said at the beginning. Palliative medicine didn't interest me very much, but reality called me. And so I realized that what I'm doing actually is kind of palliative medicine. So I went to Harvard to learn palliative medicine. And so really, I want my vision, this approach with regard to life, even the really short life, could be in all the world, that all the families in the world could do like this. And so I organize an international training program every year, a course where health workers from all the states and from 20 countries in the world, they come. And so it's really a tool to sustain this hope, but it's all born from the fact that reality provoked me and provoked my desire to save these babies. I understood that saving means respecting their life, and then everything else follows from that, was born from that. Thank you. So the same question to you a bit, Luciano. What task would you give us, the community of the meeting? You know us a bit. What is our responsibility on this theme of life? Here's another picture has turned up. Okay. Then that's it. That's all of them. This is a painting which is exposed in Florence, Palazzo Strozzi, by Kiefer, that shows a big angel, and you can't understand if it's going to fall or not, or if it will fly and go up. We don't know. So it depends on what we do. Among the 10th commandments, I'm a fanatic of the second one. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. So for many, our responsibility, we don't attribute it to God. How did God allow Auschwitz? We say, who was there? Who was there at Versailles when they imposed on Germany some obligations that were practically impossible to respect? Was it God, or was it some people who thought that in this way we can get more money, we can get more resources, and so on? So many times we bring our Lord into the dock but He's left us free. He left us free to choose between good and evil. Otherwise, the question would be otherwise would be sorted. So I think we've got the duty to take part in a knowing, aware, and active way with that covenant we talked about, this alliance. So if there's life and death, those people below in the picture, I think they're the sign of what. So it's a model of our time, you could say. That it's the fugitive. There are people who are fleeing from Gaza, people who are fleeing from Israel, people who are fleeing from Ukraine, people who are fleeing from Russia, from African countries where there's war. So the fugitive, the refugee. So when there's death in the fugitive, it means that there's something that's not right. And we can't give the fault just at the door of the governors, because we need to think about and reflect. I believe that we need more involvement. I'm very happy to see the meeting, because here I find communities of people who think. Political parties, they debate about votes. They think about voting communities. It don't seem that they want to become communities that think. Here there are communities that think, thinking communities, and this allows me to say that let's seek to do it in a way that's this alliance that from 2,000 odd years ago, that alliance be a concrete and real thing. Let's do like she does. That if we can't save the baby, help the parents to live this moment, this tragic moment of passing. Each one of us can do a bit better. I think that's what I want to say. And I think we can do it in this way, maybe so that the angel will bring us up and won't fall on us. It will bring us up, and we'll do the mission that was been assigned to us. Thank you. Thank you very much. To finish up this encounter of ours before one little idea. I'd like that we all did a little gesture of memory, of recall, because the last chapter of this book is dedicated to Julia, and who you recalled as his wife. And I remember very much. I remember so many times when Julia was here with us in the meeting, and I think to all that we should all like to express our solidarity and closeness to him. And if you allow me to add this little prayer for Julia. Friends, my friends, but I've always saved you. I was thinking when we heard that this is the most similar, the phrase that's most close to that one which could describe how Jesus was with man, the Christian God that we've met, because the theme of life, the strength for living comes when you feel yourself loved, when you feel on you someone who gratuitously, freely wants that you live, wants you to live either a minute or 80 years, as you said, they're given to you. But someone who affirms you as the most important and beautiful thing in the world, like you testified, and we heard. So the example that we've heard about from Elvira is something exceptional, as well as from the things that she said, but she showed us that we can be like this, we can live like this. Meeting has this aim, not just of doing theories. It's not so much theories and explaining stuff and debating theologically, but showing that this alternative, this alliance that you said, that Luciano, is possible. And it's for this that I thank you once again, our participants, and what they've said. And thank you all really so much. And I point out that, as we always do, and it's not just a formality, that each one of us can give a contribution to the meeting, because the meeting, if it exists, if it has this freedom of thought, like you recalled us, it comes to the fact that it sustains itself. It doesn't have some kind of hidden financier behind it. And so, dona ora, find you all the ways you can to sustain the meeting, to finance it. And I recall in particular that we've decided, after the introduction that from Cardinal Pizzaballa, for the emergency, the request that there comes from that, the need there is in that part that's martyred in the world, to give out part of the donations that we gather in this week for the emergency in the Holy Land. So I ask you really to be particularly generous. Thank you all, and good meeting.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi